if we're only ever focused on really difficult, hard, bad stuff, it feels impossible to deal with. A lot of the people I work with have amazing senses of humor, right? And it's such a tool for them. It's about finding that balance between when are we using humor to totally avoid and deflect and deny things, or when are we using it to lighten things just enough so that we can actually deal with them.
Hello and welcome to Sacred Comedy. I am your host, Jennifer Way, and on today's episode, we throw it back a little to December 2022. Sacred Comedy had just been born, and I actually recorded this episode on my other project, the Self-Consciousness Podcast. Along with comedians Kate Nichols, Madelein Smith, and Kendra Dawsey, I break down the origins of sacred comedy, and I share a little bit about my background and what led me to create it. So if you're interested in the backstory, please, it's sort of like a prequel of sacred comedy itself. Our show went on to host 8 events that were packed with amazing audience members, amazing comedians, revolutionary, absolutely revolutionary, and conscious entertainment. So, just keep in mind, you'll be hearing some of my references to Self-Consciousness Podcast in this episode. You're totally free to follow that one as well, wherever you get your podcast. I also have a link down in the show notes. So this is going to be the first of some other crossover episodes. So I would love for you to get comfortable, get your chores started, whatever you do, and just come on in and hang out with us. I am psyched that you are here because today's episode is very much a freestyle, and it's also, I think, the first time I'm really recording video for a solo episode. Although that's not just a solo episode, I'm actually going to be welcoming a couple of special guests. So I'm just going to go right into it. I have, over the last couple of months, this is December of 2022, mid-December, I have been working on something that has been a dream for kind of my whole life. I think everything in my blood has pointed to this project. I decided on the heels of COVID to start to create my own production company. If you're not already familiar, my history involves going to college for television radio production. I was a video production concentration major in Ithaca College. It was really difficult for me to get a job in the industry when I graduated, and there's many reasons I have explored personally and professionally as to why that was the case. I mean, I think it comes down to the fact that I didn't really have a strong narrative that I was worthy around that time. So I was not exactly, exuding the kind of confidence that you need in order to really start pursuing a career in that industry. Which worked out for the best because I ended up working in the entertainment field, in and around the entertainment field, in more of an administrative capacity. So whether that was finance, bookkeeping, accounting, all the really fun stuff, getting insurance, like policies and operations management, and then eventually human resources. The good thing about that is I learned a really solid foundation and background of those kinds of skills that I would need to start my own business. And I always kind of knew that would be something I wanted to do. And when I started my intuitive consultancy, I kind of thought that would be it. But there's just something inside me that knew that I needed to create something that was more on the ground. So I had been playing with circles for many years, whether it was like an empath circle or a new moon circle or a woman's circle. I have been doing those kinds of things actually for a really, really long time. Just trying to get people together, interacting one-on-one. Now you can kind of see, if you did watch my last 4 episodes of Feminine Rising, all of those episodes were leading to this one, this announcement of this company, because all four of those women were creating things where they were bringing divine feminine into form. And that was always a huge part of what I wanted to do. I would say about 5-6 years ago, I got the idea. Well, I got the download really during one of Andy Murphy's, my beloved friend, an amazing teacher. Please go see her, Rock and Roll Shaman, at Rock and Roll Shaman on Instagram. During one of her Akashic Records reading classes, I was getting downloads from Hathor. And I was also working with Sekhmet at the time, and also with Isis and Thoth. And but the visions that I had seen in regards to Hathor involved temples and priestesses. And it was just so interesting to me that a lot of what I was seeing had to do with humor and laughter. And the message became very clear that healing and laughter is obviously combined and linked and can be very helpful. So I started kind of playing with this idea. I even have a video on YouTube about the quickest way to kind of go from shadow to light is laughter and humor, kind of puncturing the membrane, if you will, of vibrational fields and moving from one to another. Humor and laughter is just such a fundamental part of humanity. Do you like that word? Of being human, of having a heart. And it's a huge part of what's missing in the world. I also had been noticing that I feel like the entertainment industry is there for distraction. It can be there for programming. It can be there for control. I mean, these are obviously all themes. If you've been listening to the show for a while, since the beginning, these are not new. I have very strong opinions about the entertainment field. I don't love that when people want to work in the entertainment field, there's a lot of sort of degradation that happens. There's a lot of exploitation that happens. And people really have to squeeze into certain roles. And I don't mean like acting, but this idea of performance as a means of entertainment, entertaining the masses in order to kind of control the vibe. I wanted to do away with that. I realized for a long time that performance is actually very sacred. So a lot of the visions had to do with that, kind of coming back to that. And I'd also read an article, I don't remember when, that there was a scientific study about shamanic practitioners or shamans, and that the performance aspect of a shamanic ritual was key to whether people were healed. And that really struck me. Not to mention all of the people I had been sort of getting to know, like Karen Rontowski, or the work of Jessa Reed, even all of the people in their circle who are comedians by trade or were comedians by trade, and were integrating a spiritual side to it. So I came up with an idea to create a festival where we would weave stand-up comedy and wellness. And as I was beginning to really plan that out and starting to go to comedy shows here in Jersey City, where I live, which, by the way, has an amazing comedy scene. I mean, who knew? In the last 5 years, it has grown exponentially. You can find a comedy show any night in Jersey City, which is amazing. And there's some really wonderful and amazing promoters and producers who are doing that work. And I was just like, well, I'm going to start this company and I'm going to start planning this festival. But I think the answer right now is monthly shows or twice monthly shows. So you're getting a real like peek into the process. This is, as my husband would call, a play-by-play. Enjoying it? So this is my thought process. This was basically the process that brought me to create Hathor Communications, and Hathor Communications is now producing the Sacred Comedy Show. So the Sacred Comedy Show is me gathering 3 to 4 amazing comedians, mostly women, although I am not excluding anyone else. So, and let me add women, non-binary. It's really important to me that their voices are amplified. It's really important to me that women are respected as the healers they are, especially in this craft, with performance, with the intuition and the sensory perception of a crowd and how to work with that. Hopefully you don't hear that Roomba going in the background because that would suck. And just kind of bringing everyone together to an event where they can experience a sort of wellness spa or wellness retreat and also laugh. I'm not a big drinker. I don't really like going to bars. And a lot of the comedians I had been seeing are kind of mean. And I wanted something that was a little bit more soothing, a little more soft and squishy, but obviously smart and witty. Something that can combine the experience of a night out, going to see a stand-up show with maybe having some meditations, maybe having some card pulls, catching up on astrology. So this is the official announcement. I have created the Sacred Comedy Show, and it is starting on January 7th in Jersey City at 6:30 p.m. at SIP Studios, which is at 140 SIP Avenue. And for our first inaugural show, for our premiere show, we have headlining Madelein Smith, Jersey City local, Kendra Dawsey, Jersey City local, and Kate Nichols, who is a New Jersey local. So this episode is an interview with all 3 of them because they were my first priestesses. And I do consider them priestesses because that's the energy that we're bringing to these shows. They are healers in their own right, in their craft. And Kate is also a psychotherapist. So yeah, this episode is me talking with each of them. And we talk a little bit about kind of how they got started in comedy, why they chose comedy. It's a little bit of a difficult industry to break into, as you can imagine. But it was very important for me to give them a platform, not only for the first show, but also here on the Self-Consciousness podcast. And they're amazing comedians and they really bring some magic. And our second show in January 21st, Karen Rontowski will be headlining. And we also have Jessica Rotundi and Lissa Mandel, who will be on a part of those shows. And Jessica and Lissa are part of a group that has been producing shows like this for actually many years out of Brooklyn. If I hadn't said that already, called Vision Board, where they do psychic readings and stand-up. And there's just so much crossover, and I really wanted to create something that was a safe space and a new kind of experience for people. It's going to be a multi-sensory, I was going to say multi-dimensional, but yeah, that too, a multi-sensory experience where things are going to smell nice, things are going to be warm and comfy. You're going to feel so comfortable and at ease, and you won't know why. It's because we're totally going to open the space with a shaman beforehand. We're going to clear the energy. We're going to make it super high vibe, so that you can sit back, relax, and really receive. I am going to have usually high vibe drinks or treats at the shows. Again, this is it's sort of on the path of wellness. I guess the way people are, loving to make that part of their programs. Programs meaning like health programs. But my hope is that you come to one of these shows because you haven't been to a comedy show in a while and you used to love them, but you're not really a big drinker anymore. And maybe, you can't really leave your kids for too long, but maybe 2 hours on a Saturday, early Saturday night is doable. And this is something that is an alternative to the spiritual industry, to the wellness industry, to the media and entertainment industry. It's an alternative. It's something new. And I feel just so incredibly passionate about making this work. And I just want to thank you guys for listening for so long, because this will continue. Self-Consciousness Podcast will continue. It is now officially one of the first productions of Hathor Communications. And, again, we always want to combine humor with spirituality, always, because there's so much serious dark shit out there. We're living it. We're really living it. And a huge part of healing has to be taking a step back, not attaching to things so deeply, not over identifying so much with our healing and the pain and the suffering, but finding ways to understand how to connect to ourselves in real ways that might be new experiences like this, where we haven't really thought of stand-up comedy as like a healing experience, but deep down, everybody knows that that's what it is. I think that's obvious. I mean, laughter is healing, laughter is medicine. It's not a new idea. But I think we can do better. I think we can have comedy that lifts us up in a way by, encouraging the dark to be talked about in a way that finds light from it. Because where would we be without dark to show us where the light is? So blah, 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 blah. I really hope that this episode gets you excited about this possibility. I do plan for this show to be streamed at some point, where you'll be able to access the show even if you're not in the local area. Other than that, I guess that's kind of it. It's been a journey for me, and to kind of look back on my life and identify all the steps that really led me here to the one thing, the one project that I just kind of gave myself permission to do. That's really what it comes down to. I gave myself permission. A lot of those thoughts come up like, who do I think I am? I'm not a comedy show producer. But if I say I am and I create a comedy show, then I am. Then that's my reality. So I encourage you to do things that you might not be giving yourselves permission to do because of, these sort of limiting belief systems. My favorite phrase ever. I think it's really important to allow yourself that kind of freedom. And I will say this project, every second of it, there's just like every second of this project, every second of the work that I put into it, down to the email, down to the going around to stores in the rain and hanging up flyers, down to, working out contracts and things like that. Every part of it is fueled with so much energy for me, because I finally aligned into purpose energy in a way that I didn't realize I could do. I didn't realize I was allowed to do. So give yourself permission to do something new. Give yourself permission to try anything, really, to try something different, to try something that excites you. And I hope that when you listen to my interviews coming up with these comedians, you'll get a little inspiration from them. And I hope to see you on our first show, January 7th. Kate. How are you?
It's so nice to finally kind of meet you.
I know. We've been talking, we've been speaking over the phone and like Instagramming each other, but it is nice to finally meet you. I'm psyched. Kate, welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast. I'm so excited that you are here virtually, even though you're not that far away from me, right? You're in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Very excited to be here.
Yay. So you are a stand-up comedian and you are also a psychotherapist.
Correct.
So like the golden sort of like, okay, I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm probably going to cut that out because I'm like, I didn't prepare anything at all. How did you combine those things? How does comedy and healing kind of overlap for you? Or do they even?
Absolutely. I think comedy has in my life probably always been something of a healing tool. I grew up in a very funny family and extended, family and community. And humor has always been something that was used to balance really difficult things and challenging things. I think my family is like culturally mostly Irish by descent. I think that's like kind of a cultural thing that we use humor to lighten heavy situations and to get through things. A lot of dark humor and stuff like that, and just light, silly, fun stuff too.
Yeah. How did you like, what was the decision to become a stand-up comic? When did that happen?
Yeah, I got my master's in social work in 2014 and I started working. And at that point, it was the first time in my life that I'd had some free time and disposable income. And I was doing some self-searching, I guess. I think that was around the time I was probably starting to go to therapy and feeling like, my work was really challenging and I wasn't having a lot of fun. And so I read something about, in order to figure out, what you're really passionate about, look at what you did for fun as a kid. Like I knew that I liked helping people. I enjoyed it, but it's very heavy stuff. It's a lot of work. And, that wasn't it for me. So it wasn't the only thing. So when I was a kid, I used to like write parody songs and do like little sketches with my friends. And I always loved making people laugh. And I was like, oh, I guess I could actually do that. I'd never seen it as a viable path because financially I just kind of was of the mindset that like people who pursue entertainment have their parents paying rent for them. And it just didn't seem at the time like a realistic option for me. Anyway, so I took some improv comedy classes, and then some of my pals through there started doing stand up, and I started going to shows, and I was like, I really want to do that. So then I got into that. So I kind of, over the past decade or so, have been growing both careers concurrently,
This is like when I first learned that about you, I was just like, I was like in awe, because to be able to balance those two things, and like, it's just, obviously you're a perfect fit for the Sacred Comedy Show. So you're going to be performing at our first show, our inaugural show. What's the best experience you've had on stage? Like, what's the magic? Have you ever been able to kind of pinpoint what makes it work?
That's a great question. What's coming to mind for me first is a storytelling show that I did. And I've always really loved storytelling, comedic storytelling, or the story style of comedy. And I did this show where I told a story about my learning how to drive a stick shift. And the first car that I bought, that was like just my car. That wasn't like something that was like multi-use in the family or like handed down. And it is a really fun, light story, but there is also a lot of heaviness to it as well, because it's about my mom, who was bipolar, and throughout at one point in the story, I do talk about her passing away, and it was kind of like something that was injected into the story that was a surprise to the audience. So there was this moment where they're laughing, like it really built up this crescendo, and they're laughing about the story, and I'm like, oh my God, they don't know that I'm about to say that she's not alive
I'm
anymore. I know, no, thank
And I'm sorry.
you.
I'm sorry for
Because
your loss.
like that moment in my mind stands out to me so much, because I think I even said like, oh no, you guys don't know what's about to happen. And then I said it, and like the way it changed the energy in the room, but it like shifted us from this space collectively in the room of like laughing and being so plugged in and in it together to like, oh shit, yeah, bad stuff also happens in life, but we were all there together. And there is like a very bittersweet theme to that story. And I felt like it landed really well. And so that's a moment where it just all came together. Those are my favorite. That's like my favorite intersection. My favorite place to hang out is between really tough stuff and joy and laughter in that difficult stuff.
Where do you see what would be the ideal like path for your comedy? Where do you see yourself in 5 years comedically?
Yeah, I get asked this question a fair amount, and for me, I think it's about sharing stories, like the idea of a one woman show type deal, but that has, a bigger underlying message. I think anybody w- hopes for that when they put something out there. Like, it's not just all about me, it's about being human and how we, make it through things. Something that really strikes that balance between um, having fun and feeling like you're getting something for your soul out of it too. Yeah, I saw
It's
this
really good.
show once, this one woman show where this performer, she was so wacky and silly and had like these crazy outfits and this little backup band, but she talked about some really difficult stuff too, but she pulled in all these pop culture references and engaged the audience, and there was audience participation, and she'd make people get up and like do all these things, and it just was like this. That's what I'd be aiming for, something that is just so fun, but you also really get your feelings in it. I think that's what it's about, is like when something is just silly and just fun, it feels like there's this part that's kept in the shadow of like life is difficult and challenging also. Both things are true. And I really like to see both things at the forefront together. Um there's something that feels really like not so great about when it's you feel like we're hiding all of the other stuff, the difficult stuff, the hard stuff. So when art or media comedy is able to like hold those things together, I feel really present with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a richer experience. It's a more
Yeah.
human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to just a distraction.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the therapy work as well. If we're only ever focused on really difficult, hard, bad stuff, it feels impossible to deal with. Like a lot of the people I work with have amazing senses of humor, right? And it's such a tool for them. It's about finding that balance between when are we using humor to totally avoid and deflect and deny things, or when are we using it to lighten things just enough so that we can actually deal with them? Because if it's too heavy, we can't even go there.
Yeah.
But if we can like lighten it just the littlest bit, we can get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do your any of your clients know that you do stand-up comedy?
Yeah. Um,
What's their reaction? Are they surprised or are they like, "Oh, that fits?"
no, they're usually surprised. No, but which I think is a good thing. If they were like, "Oh, of course you're a stand-up," I think that might be a bad sign about the therapy. Um,
Yeah.
like, oh, you're coming in here doing jokes all the time. But I've had a generally very good response from people. People are like, oh my God, that's so cool, And that's part of something that I do. I specialize in working with women and queer folks, non-binary femmes. And part of the work is about embracing the fact that we can be multifaceted beings. You don't just have to be one thing. You don't just have to fit this narrow definition of societally or within your family you feel like you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there is a voice in my head that's like, you can't do both. You if you're going to be a therapist, you have to be very serious. You can't be a comedian. And if you're going to be a comedian, you can't, get into all of that heady, brainy stuff, all of that feeling stuff too much. But I do think that you can be both.
Yeah.
And so I think my clients really respond to that when they find out about it. They're like, oh yeah, you can like do other things. You don't just have to be one thing.
Yeah. I think it's a marvelous example of all of the things that people are capable of. And to be able to hold both things, to me, is just, again, I'm like, you must be just like an awesome therapist. I would love to have you as my therapist. But you're also like, you're creating safe spaces. You're creating safe spaces for people to be able to kind of be themselves, for people to emote around you, whether it's, the darker stuff or even the lighter stuff. And it's fascinating. I'm like so curious about like your chart and stuff. Like what? It must all point to this, like very much it feels like you're very much in alignment with like what you're meant to do. How can people find you?
Oh, I'm on Instagram mostly. For comedy stuff, you can find me at Hey Kate Nichols, HeyKateNichols. And then I do have a therapist Instagram. It's at Cycle Breakers Therapy, like breaking cycles. CYCLEBreakerstherapy. People, when I say it out loud, they think I'm saying psycho breaker therapy a lot. Written out, there's never that misconception, but when I say it, sometimes that's what happens, which makes sense because that's already in your mind. Psychotherapy, psycho breakers therapy. But no, we're not breaking psychos. We're breaking cycles. Yeah. Intergenerational cycles, or the cycles that we are engaged in our own life, even if they're just within you as an individual or at large, part of a community or family system. But it's about, how do we break those cycles and how do we create new cycles in our life that we want to see? Yeah, that are more in alignment with who we authentically are.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much for talking.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys. We'll see everybody on January 7th.
Can't wait. I'm so excited for this show.
I'm so excited too. Kendra and Madelein, welcome to the Self-Consciousness Podcast.
Sorry that we're eating bagels. Thank you for having us.
This is perfect because it's Hanukkah. So it's like, in a way, you're celebrating without realizing that you're celebrating. So thank you for representing my religion that I don't follow, really. Non-practicing.
Is it Chag Samech? Is that how you say it? Did I fuck it up? I fucked it up.
You didn't fuck it up because I have no idea. Well, I love you guys, first of all. And I am so honored that you both have agreed to perform at the very first Sacred Comedy show. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm so excited to have you both because I am going to be emceeing and like hosting. And I could only do that with people that I like really respect. So Madelein, I had seen you perform on a Thursday night and you were embedded in a group of, it was pretty much a sausage party, and no offense, sausage holders or owners, but it was the only performance that didn't make me feel uncomfortable. And I was just so I was like, yep, Yep. First person I'm booking 100%.
Oh,
And I think I remember asking you, I'm like, are you into woo? And you're like, I'm a lesbian. Of course I'm woo.
yeah, I feel like
He has a salt lamp.
I do have a salt lamp and tarot cards and stuff, so I like a little bit, not like hardcore, but like a little bit.
I mean, listen, you're open. That's all that matters.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Kendra, are you woo adjacent? Are you
Yeah,
woo?
I definitely had a astrology phase.
You still are really into this.
I mean, I just know. I don't think I'm into it. I just know it. So someone's like,
Okay.
"I'm a Capricorn."
You
I
just
could
know
be.
it.
I could like here are the stereotypes associated with your sign. But no,
That's
yeah,
really good.
yeah. I know a lot of people who are like into woo stuff. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a tarot card reading. Actually, I've had a few done.
Yeah. I see very much a crossover in sort of almost like an intuitive connection with your audience when you're performing. So I kind of just wanted to ask you guys. I mean, I also wanted to ask like how you got started. Why don't we start with that first?
Okay.
Such a good host, you guys. You should know this by now. But so each of you, if you can, just let me know. Let me know. If you can, sorry, that would be great. Let me know.
Madelein, do you want to go first?
Like how we got started
In comedy. How did you decide that you were going to do this?
Actually, I've been doing comedy for pretty long, almost 10 years. In come June, it'll be 10 years. So I started in 2013 when I was 23. I was right out of college and I moved back to Rochester where my family lives. And when I was in college, I had some friends that would go into, because I went to college in Fredonia, which is very, very Western New York. Like, and I had some friends that would sometimes go into Buffalo and do this like open mic night. I had like one or two friends, and I always wanted to do it, but then I would like always be scared, and then I would be like, I don't know how to do comedy. I was going to school for musical theater, but I was like, I don't know how to do comedy. So it took me like 3 years to actually get up the courage to do it. And then I would move back to Rochester, and the comedy club there was having a contest. And I signed up for the contest, which I would like really not recommend anyone do that if you've never done stand-up. Like, I think that was crazy. But I was just like, I'm going to do the contest. So the first time I ever did stand-up was in a contest, which was like really unhinged. But I made it to the finals of the contest. So I think I was already pretty good at it because I already had stage presence and had, been going to school for theater. So I think that helps. For theater, yes. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And Kendra, how about you?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I was in a sketch comedy group, and I was like interested in doing something kind of comedic. I did high school theater. We were both high school theater kids, even though I make fun of high school theater kids now. I was one of them. That's why I can make fun of them. But I went to college and I was like, it'd be really cool to do comedy. I want to do something comedic. I auditioned for all of the improv groups. I didn't get into them, but I got into sketch group. And I did that, and that was like one of the few things I felt like I was good at in college. So when I graduated, I was like, I do want to continue doing something like this. And I had a few like slow starts. I even like I did a little bit of stand-up in college, like a few times. And then when I graduated, I was doing it a little bit, but then I was like, oh, I got a job, I have to focus. But my like, what I guess like comedians usually think of like when they start stand-up comedy is when they start doing it consistently. So I started doing it consistently, I think June 2017.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. Because I was fired from a job and I was like, okay, I'll just do like I want to do comedy, I'll just do it. And then like I got another job the next weekend. So I was fine financially. But that kind of I think me getting fired kind of it kind of kicked me in the ass and was like, you should just like do what you want to do. So yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, I feel like everybody who does comedy right now has to have another job because it just doesn't seem like it's the most lucrative.
The wages have been stagnant since like the 90s.
It's pretty rough.
It's rough. I was listening to a podcast with Leah Delaria, who is another lesbian comic. And she's in Orange is the New Black, but she started out as a comic. And she was like, yeah, I started stand-up in the 80s in San Francisco. And within like 4 months, I was able to quit my day job. And it was the first time I was jealous of someone who lived in the Reagan era. I was like, I want to make enough money doing stand-up to be able to just be like, I'm just gonna perform, but now you need to be like Chris Rock.
It is really hard to make money. I mean, there's like avenues of making money and not being super famous.
Sorry.
But I know, sorry.
It's okay.
Everything up. But I do feel as if mainly to make money now in comedy, you have to do like college gigs or cruise ship gigs or something like that, unless you're like a really, really famous person and then you're good. But because I feel like sometimes also it doesn't equate, like how much attention you get online doesn't equate to money either. Because like I have a lot of friends in comedy who have over 100,000-200,000 followers on TikTok, but they don't make like any money from that. So it's just like, and sometimes it can be kind of embarrassing sometimes too, because sometimes like I'll have videos that will go viral and then I'll have people like, like in my inbox and stuff like that, and I'm like, I literally have like $50 left to my name, and it's like not, you know what I mean, like it's just not. I feel like people think that if you have a lot of like online attention, or like if you have like these videos that are getting really big numbers, that it equates to making money, and it like really doesn't. Like so comedy is hard.
Comedy's hard.
Yeah.
Well, so what keeps bringing you back to it? What has created this sort of almost like this devotion, without making you sound crazy? Like what?
Mental illness. It's all mental illness.
Yeah.
If we were reasonable people, we would be doing something else.
Like I think since Kendra and I have been together too, I think that it has also put like I see other people who are in couples and like getting married, getting engaged and stuff, and are able to like buy houses, and I'm like, oh, if we just had normal jobs and moved to like, suburban Pennsylvania or something, we could get like a big house.
Well, we don't want to
live there.
We don't want to live in suburban.
That would be awful. But I think it is hard because you're like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I for 10 years pursuing this crap that gives me like barely anything back? But I think that it's because it's like, I really love it. I think it's so fun. It's like there's very few things in my life that I like genuinely am like, this just brings me joy. And it's not like I'm like doing it for another person. I'm just doing it for me. It's just something I want to do for myself. So I think that's why for me. I can't speak for you.
No, that's why for me too. And yeah. I guess I could frame it as like mental illness. But I do genuinely enjoy it. I think like as people from marginalized groups, comedy is one of the few times where like people are expected to listen to you. They usually do, not always.
Definitely.
And honestly, there are a lot of like queer women in comedy, and I feel like that might be part of it. Also, lesbians are just funny.
That's true, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think there definitely is like there are definitely people who are like, oh, I really love this. This is like the time where I'm able to actually express my thoughts without, without my boss saying don't do that or whatever.
Yeah. And to get the response that you get from people, it's got to be sort of like confirming and like validating.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is like, what does a great night or a great performance feel like on your end? Like after you've had like where you just killed it.
Yeah. Why are you like, do you not want to answer?
No, you
were like staring into my eyes.
It's you're beautiful. And I love you.
I would say it's so satisfying when you just like, when you do a great show and like get a ton of applause breaks, or get like just like everybody, all your jokes are hitting really hard. I would say it's just this feeling of like, it's so hard after that. Even if you're tired, it's hard to like go back to your home or your hotel or whatever and like go to sleep because you're like so ramped up. But I think for me that usually only lasts for like an hour or two, and then I'm like, then I'm like back in like not depression, but like back to like anxiety brain again. But I think that the nice thing for me is that it gives me at least an hour or two of like feeling good and happy and not having anxious thoughts. So that's what I like about it, even though it is anxiety inducing comedy in general.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay.
I think like a successful show, it's like, oh wow, like I'm just so funny and so popular. It feels very successful because it does. I think the way sometimes like seeing some people do stand up, you get the idea that you don't have to put a lot of work into it, which is not true. You have to put a lot of work into it. So it's like all that hard work paying off, all that time at open mics being, annoyed or bored and listening to everyone else's same jokes, and then like waiting 2 hours to talk for 3 minutes to see if one punchline works, and then it doesn't work, and all of that. It is a lot of hard work. So
Yeah. So kind of going back to that question about intuition, do you ever feel, would you say you're connected to your own intuition in a way, and you're able to kind of experience a little bit of that when you're in a crowd or when you're in front of a crowd? What is that experience like?
yeah,
I think so,
yeah, you definitely feel the vibes of the crowd, and you're like, oh, like, dude, like they seem upset this evening, or like, whatever. Yeah, I think so, and you kind of like feel it out and kind of figure, which is, I mean, you should always write like a list of your jokes, and I think Madelein and I sometimes will like write a list of our jokes, and then we're on stage, and then we're like, oh, like I think they'll like this joke that I didn't write down but I've been doing for a while. So yeah, or like Madelein's very amazing at crowd work, which is why you should book her. I'm not that great at crowd work. I mostly just like kind of shout at people. Not in a mean way, but
Come Saturday night, January 7th, to be yelled at.
But politely. No,
politely.
I just talk loud when I get excited, so you won't be yelled at. I'll just be yelling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Won't be at anyone.
Perfect.
I think with what you were, I think with now I'm all off track. I think with your original question of what you were saying was about intuition of the room, right? Of what the room is like. And I think that like we were just at West Side Comedy Club, which is a great club on the Upper West Side, on Saturday night, and it was rough at first. It was rough because the crowd was so tight and they just like didn't want to laugh at anything. But then I think that by the third or fourth person, they were like really way better. So I think sometimes what I usually try to do is like go off of the intuition of, being like, well, what could I do to like open the people up, or like what's a skill that I have? And like Kendra said, I think my go-to is always talking to the crowd and doing crowd work. But yeah, you can just tell sometimes when people, or like sometimes you do shows where like people didn't know that comedy was going to be happening. It's like a show.
That happens,
and that's like especially fair to people.
And we started in smaller scenes. So I started in Connecticut, and then Madelein started comedy in Rochester, and that would happen all the time. Where like it would be like a Tuesday night show at some bar, and like Bumblefuck, Connecticut, like named after Native American, like a Native American tribe. Everyone there like hates anyone darker than a certain skin color. It's like someone would like go
New York
to someone would go to the start of the bar as all these people are watching some whatever game. And they're like, hey, there's gonna be live comedy tonight, and you would just have to like fight for your life to get a fraction of attention from like burly men. But that's like comedy gym, honestly. And I think like I think it does help your growth as a performer as much as those settings are awful. It does help your growth to like be there and kind of like intuit what people are into, or like be able to write something good enough to grab their attention, or like find some way to like get their attention. Not even write something good enough, because sometimes the dudes are, like,
it's not even about writing.
No, it's literally like performance, or like being like, hey, they noticed me.
Well, did you see, I was just thinking about that. Did you see, I had posted this video. I posted this video on Instagram like a day or two ago that was a video from a long time ago when I first started comedy. It was from, I think, like 8 years ago. I think it was, like 2014. And it was in this bar in North Tonawanda, New York, which is like very much rural, up by Buffalo, up by the border. And it's like really, really rural. And the video starts with me saying to this man who kept talking and talking, I said, how many times have you been shot? Because I felt like he had been shot. And then he was like, I just got a vibe from this man that he had at least been shot once in his life. And he was like, I've been shot once in this bar by this woman, Leslie, and told this whole story.
You're a psychic.
She had the metal detector in her head. She knew that there was like stray bullets inside this
About this man. You have to, Jennifer, if you haven't seen the video, it's on my Instagram.
I saw it. I'm gonna
It started with me.
show it right here.
It started with me knowing that this man had been shot. I don't know why, but he had that vibe about him. And so, yeah, so sometimes I'll just do crowd work with somebody and start it off in a way where I'll just, because I think I already know about people sometimes. When when certain people keep talking and stuff and you're like, okay.
Yeah, you also meet a lot of different people, or you perform in front of a lot of different people. You meet a lot of different people in comedy. So like, of course you should not reduce people to like stereotypes, but you could use, like, if there's like a drunk girl wearing like a bachelorette party sash at a gay show, you're like, she's going to be so annoying.
Yeah.
She's going to be, she is drunk.
Yeah.
She wants to have a good time. Her thought of a good time is a comic like yelling at her. So give her what she wants to the point that she shuts up and then keeps keep going with your show.
But also, I think it's really important to not reduce people to stereotypes, because I was just with my friend Joel James, and he was a really funny comic, but he was like, you're the only white comic that I ever let do my rooms. And he was like, because you're the only white comic who can do my rooms. And he was like, the reason is because you don't go on stage and like try to pretend that you're like cool and hip and like know an urban audience. He was like, you just like be yourself, and that's why like you do so well. And I think also people make a lot of assumptions about, they call it urban rooms, they mean like black rooms, but they make a lot of assumptions about it, and they're like, this is what everyone's going to be like, or it's going to be a really tough crowd, which that assumption is true, I would say.
It's
like,
actually a tough crowd.
Not even tough, I wouldn't say, but like I feel like in urban rooms, like if they don't like you, they really will not like you.
Yeah, they're not going to pretend that they like you, which is good. That's
probably for the best.
It's probably good for the comedians to do it. But
you don't want to like go in with the assumption and be like, oh, no one's gonna like me because I'm not like the same race, or like because I'm gay or something. Although sometimes there could be a little homophobia there, but there can be homophobia in like any room. So
like I think with me and urban rooms as well, like I grew up in the suburbs, and like I'm not like less black, but I know I'm not the same person as like Tiffany Haddish, because we're separate people. And
she's a Jew, by the way.
She is Jewish. Ethiopian. Wait,
Ethiopian Jew.
But I forgot the term for Ethiopian Jew. So she is Jewish.
Oh yeah, there is that.
But yeah, like I learned pretty early on. I don't think I ever tried anything different, but I learned how to like be more comfortable with myself. It's like it helps to just be yourself. Like, don't pretend like you're suddenly from the hood in an urban room. Like I always go on stage and I have a joke where I'm like, I sound whiter than 50 lambs at a Taylor Swift concert. It's like mostly true. Like, and like there's like it's not gonna help anyone for me to pretend otherwise. It's just like, be yourself. Yeah. Don't think you're funny. Mm-hmm. If you're like yourself and you're not trying to like put on a different persona. So
yeah, I think it helps when if you're kind of sitting back and you're just kind of like, entertain me, and you're if someone is completely themselves, it's going to make a difference. If they're only partially themselves and trying too hard, then it's so obvious. But that's interesting. I'm going to try too hard for sure on our first comedy night.
That's okay.
Really.
Fine.
But well, you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. Where can everybody find you? Just give us your handles.
Of course. So my handle is Bossy Dawsey, but it's Bossy spelled like the adjective. There's an underscore. I should probably change it because I have to like Bossy, there's an underscore, and then my last name, Dawsey.
Okay, so mine is just my name, which is Madelein Smith, although I'm trying to use my middle name now, Madeleine Murphy Smith. I need to actually change that because I've been doing comedy for so long and I keep not actually changing it, but I'm trying to use that more. And so
At least you're consistent with that.
I know, I'm trying. My first name is spelled differently than how people usually spell Madeleine. It's Madelein. No E on the end. It's
That's
just
very French.
it is, and nobody ever gets it. People always misspell it, so I think
I get it.
You get it. You get it.
Madeleine. That's
Madeleine.
right.
Madeleine. Like a little cookie.
Like the little cookie.
Exactly. So that's how my name is spelled. You can find me on my TikTok has been popping off recently. So follow me on TikTok. It's Madeleine Smith, and then Instagram's Madeleine Smith. I also have a Facebook page, it's Madeleine Smith, and a Twitter that's Madeleine Murphy. So that's everything. And a website, but I also similarly to Kendra need to update it, but it's just madeleinesmithcomedy.com.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is Kendra Dawsey.com.
Awesome. But don't go there yet. Just wait until the new year.
Mine should probably be updated too. I feel like my bio is a little old.
Yeah, you need to. I
have an album out too. It's out wherever you listen to albums. It was number one only for like 2 days, but it was number one.
Doesn't matter.
Briefly on the iTunes charts, comedy charts. And so it's on Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. I will say when I recorded it, it was years ago and I was still married to a man. So you'll hear a lot of bisexual material. It's before I fully leaned into lesbianism. So, but I think it's a good album regardless.
It's a great album.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I cooked to it recently.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. It was.
What's the title again?
Oh, it's called Belle of the Ball.
Right.
Yeah, and it's my name, Madeleine Smith. Thank you so much for listening.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel like listenership has dropped off over the years, so I'm glad that some people are.
I listen to it.
You have to be.
And now you guys should listen to it.
Yes.
Get a taste.
Yes.
But please, you guys, come to the show if you're local, Jersey City, New York City, January 7th at SIP Studios. We hope. And and I'll see you guys there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.